This week on Arizona Illustrated, the Curley School in Ajo, barriers to care, the back road to Mount Lemmon, and an Arizona profile. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. 135 miles west of Tucson sits the quiet little desert town of Ajo. And there you will find the Curley School, a planned live-work community designed for artists to create and commune with like-minded people and continue their life's work.
It's like a secret nobody knows about because nobody I know has ever heard of this place.
This is the Curley School in Ajo, Arizona, a town of about 3,300 residents 120 miles west of Tucson in the middle of the Sonoran Desert. The school was originally built in 1919 as part of the City Beautiful movement when Ajo was a booming mining community, but the town and school have gone through many changes since then. The new Cornelia open-pit copper mine closed in the 80s, people moved out of town, unemployment and people living under the poverty line went up, and eventually the school and several other beautiful historic buildings went vacant.
There were also other personal issues for me as far as a tribal member was concerned and being concerned about the Sonoran Desert.
Lorraine Marquez Eiler grew up just outside of Ajo. In the 90s, she helped found the International Sonoran Desert Alliance, or ISDA. In the beginning, their goals were all about the environment post-mining.
We decided to solve the problems of the world, as the story goes. And so we talked about saving the Sonoran Desert.
What we found is as we met with communities again and again and again, the top priorities of that community were not environmental in nature, but were housing, economic opportunity, jobs. We realized to be really sustainable in environmental impacts, you've got to address the people living in the environment. Seems obvious, but it was really an aha moment for us.
Our goals, we're looking at economic development, revitalization of an area, protection of an area, education. Ajo always said to us, save the Curley School, save all these huge buildings that were just laying there.
Through a patchwork of grants, foundation support, and individual donations, ISDA was able to raise $9.6 million to purchase and renovate the Curley School, and in 2007 it reopened as 30 affordable live-work apartments. The next year it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places.
Everyone who moves in does qualify as quote-unquote low income. We don't believe in aggregating poverty per se, so we said, well, why don't we aggregate it around something else to not say everyone who lives here is low income, but everyone who lives here is an artist or artisan.
All I've heard is how, it's low income housing and that's all those people went there for. They're not really artists. But right now we've got a huge amount of artists, and there have been a huge amount of artists that have come through here.
Ajo has some interesting opportunities if you're receptive to it.
Karen Saharsky and Mike Henricks live on the Curley School campus. They came here specifically because of the clay studio, but they also paint, sculpt, make bread, garden, collage, sew, write poetry, and make music.
I still make a living as a ceramic artist, but I do everything else.
I'd already found it before all these other storms hit. Mom died and they're raising their rent in a lousy neighborhood.
Army veteran Arnold Alexander moved here from L.A. To him, Ajo is quiet and relaxed, which is a welcome change of pace. Behind his apartment, he makes Tibetan-style paper from recycled materials. Eventually, it turns into postcards and other goods he sells at artists' markets.
I'll put it in Photoshop and take everything off the photograph except the butterfly, and just leave the butterfly on there and transfer the butterfly to my paper.
The best way to describe my style is kind of like movie music. It's very cinematic and very moody.
Bobby Narcho moved here from the Tohono O'odham Reservation about an hour away. He spends a lot of time working on his music, photography, and video projects.
I wanted to try something different. It was kind of just home all the time on the reservation. I thought to myself, why not get out of the reservation and live on my own? Ever since then, it's been 4 years here, and it's been very cool.
I was able to move out here and I thought, I'm not looking for a job. I have a modest pension that supports me.
Z. Galliano has always wanted to work on her jewelry full-time. Her apartment at the Curley School, which she loves, has helped make that happen.
I want to really explore. This place gives me the freedom to do that. I had no idea any of this existed, and the more I researched, the more incredible I mean, everything they've done here, the plaza, this school.
The Curley School is basically an urban revitalization effort in a rural area. The project garnered several awards and recognition across the Southwest. With the success, ISDA has been able to expand and save more historic buildings.
We rolled a developer fee from that project into purchasing the rest of the campus, which is now a whole host of things, but primarily the Sonoran Desert Inn and Conference Center.
This conference center was designed to bring in large groups and retreats to the area. It started carrying these javelina pillows designed and handmade by Karen Saharsky, and they're a success story for the organization.
The conference center opening was huge. I made 600 of them last year, and I make them by hand. Saved all of my javelina money, put it in a separate account so I can keep track of it, and we went to Paris in March.
After the conference center, ISDA was also involved in preserving the historic town center. Each year, on September 22nd, the organization hosts an International Day of Peace.
I think it's probably the most illustrative event of our organization and our mission and our focus.
This event brings kids from 3 nations together and hints at the potential of this town and this region.
Every year it's the same. It's just totally fun.
I'm amazed at the progress. It's been a long struggle. Art and culture knows no boundaries with people.
Arizona spans more than 100,000 square miles, and over 98% of those miles are rural. In the isolated communities and small towns of rural Arizona, life has its own pace and its own special set of opportunities and challenges, especially when you're growing up.
I'm from a really small town, born and raised, still live here, plan to live here for a really long time. I love it. You know everybody in town, so it's a really familial feeling. I feel like this is like, it's like I can almost breathe here. I was a really big tomboy. So I liked, playing outside. I had a really big imagination, so like I would just go out and play and like pretend I was like an astronaut, a policeman. Barbies, I would just be in there for hours just playing. I started getting bullied in 3rd, 4th grade. And it was really a feeling of desperation because you just don't understand why people are picking on you, especially having grown up with that group of kids. As a Latina, obviously your hair is darker and thicker, and so they'd call me unibrow and monkey and ugly, and even to this day, like when I'm getting ready and stuff, all those thoughts, sometimes those words that they called me still pop in my head, and I just have to be like, no, that was their perception, but like you still almost carry it a little bit with you. At first, it's a rush. You're just like, haha, like, I cannot eat. And it's a way to, like, it's the only thing I had control of in my life. So it's a lot about self-control, and then a lot about you're just so hopeless, like, you just want to disappear in the end. One day I came home from school, and my mom was cooking dinner and I was doing my homework, and she offered me like some chips and salsa or something like that. And I remember like a huge fight broke out because I didn't want to eat. And then at that point, my mom was like, "Are you eating? Do you have an eating disorder?" And at that point, I was like, "What? No, like I don't." But what happened was once she found out, that's when I started self-harming, because I felt like part of me is exposed. Now I need to do something else. I remember that night I went and I cut myself for the first time, and it was such a relieving feeling. Cutting and like feeling the pain and seeing the blood and all of that just gave me, it was desperate. It's hard to explain. Like I felt really desperate in the situation. And at that point I knew like this is a problem. It's out of control. Like people don't do this. But through everything, it's the one thing that was the hardest for me to get over. Because no matter what, if they put me in a treatment facility, they put me in a hospital, I still knew I had like the cutting. And that gave me comfort. It really did give me peace.
One of the main ways that being in a rural area can impact a person getting treatment is simply lack of services that are available in rural communities. Oftentimes, there aren't buses available, and if people have unreliable transportation or they don't have money for gas, that's going to impact their ability to come in for treatment.
And what ends up happening is that children and families, if they can access a therapist, if they can access a psychiatrist, they're pretty lucky. And then if they need more than that, they have to go through many hoops, searching and seeking out resources for these children so that they can get them. Children may sit in the emergency rooms for days, sometimes weeks, waiting for an inpatient bed to be available. And that inpatient bed may not even be in the same county that the family members are in.
When I was 18 was when I think, for me, the worst of everything happened. That is when I attempted suicide for the first time. I attempted suicide, I think, 6 more times within 7-8 months. It was basically me and my psychiatrist. It was a new psychiatrist. And I remember I told her, you send me to the hospital or you send me to treatment, but if you send me home, I'm gonna die. I mean, that's about $2,300 a day to stay in a facility like that. Honestly, I'm still paying off medical debt from that time. It's basically 24-hour programming and monitoring. So you're doing groups and therapy all day. I had never had that in-depth therapy before. And that's when I started to really understand what was going on with me and maybe some of the reasons why I have been through what I've been through.
So children and families who are having trouble accessing care is somewhat two-pronged. On one side is the family and the children that are poor. They can't get access to services. Once they get those services, they're few and far between for having a full service array of what they need. And they're often last on the list because they only have Medicaid. The other side, the flip side, are the families who aren't very wealthy, people who have basic insurance but are maybe barely making ends meet. They're the ones who also have a gap to get services. And part of the problem is many of the services that have been set up for the Medicaid population are not accessible to them.
You'd like to think, oh, I'm just going to get the help, but there's a lot that goes into it, and unfortunately finances is a big part of it. And I can only imagine for people who don't have any resources at all. I mean, it's probably impossible. I feel that there's a lot for me to do here. That's one of the reasons I came back, to work with the Latino population, the rural population, and mental health. Because we don't have the resources here, I really feel that I can make an impact and that we need to make an impact in this community. The work that I put into my recovery is a daily thing. There's some days still that if something happens that like triggers me, sometimes I don't get out of bed, but I have more good days than bad days now, a lot more good days than bad days. Definitely, it's the first time where I feel stable enough to consider what do you want to do for the rest of your life. You're worthy to get better. We have a community of people in recovery, a community of people who are still in their diseases, and whichever chapter you're in, that's okay, but it can get better and it will get better.
You can learn more about Andrea in the upcoming AZPM original documentary, Not Broken, a candid, unflinching, yet hopeful one-hour documentary about the lives of 7 young people coping with mental illness, told in their own brave words. Not Broken premieres on Monday, October 30th at 9 p.m. on PBS 6. At an elevation of more than 9,000 feet and a relatively short drive from Tucson, Mount Lemmon has become a high country getaway for Tucsonans seeking cooler temperatures and the beauty of nature. And while the vast majority of visitors take the Catalina Highway to the top, as you'll see, there's more than one way to get there.
When I first retired 20 years ago, had neighbors that had four-wheel drive vehicles, and we decided to drive it because it was supposed to be very interesting. And from there, I happened to get my first ATV. This is my second. And I just naturally wanted to come up here because it is so beautiful.
Oracle Control Road was completed in 1920. It took 3 years to build it, and it was built by the Forest Service in Pima and Pinal counties. And it really opened up Mount Lemmon to vehicular traffic. You know, there were a lot of mines and ranches back there, and previously access was pretty much by horse or mule or on foot. So that was the roaded access up Mount Lemmon Highway until the Catalina Highway was built, the paved road that's on the south side of the mountain range. So it really gave those folks back there a lot of mobility and made quite a bit of difference.
This kind of put Oracle back on the map. It was the last town. In fact, this was the first building you would have seen when you got on what they called the Mount Lemmon Highway. So this is a picture taken in 1930, and it's about, you know, it's really close to our museum. So this is the beginning of the Mount Lemmon Highway, and it's called the Little Smitty Boys and Their Burros. And it shows a Coca-Cola sign that says Mount Lemmon, spelled wrong, 30 miles. Lemmon is 2 M's, and there's 1 M on the sign.
The Oracle Control Road is dirt, and it's called Control because some parts of it were really narrow and there wasn't room for 2 lanes of traffic on it. So they would kind of stagger traffic. It would go up the mountain at these times and come down the mountain at these times, so traffic flow was controlled in that way. If you're going down, you'll start off and you'll be in mixed conifer forest for a little while, and then you open out into those sweeping vistas of the grassy oak woodlands.
I get to just jump in my vehicle and bring binoculars, you know, just sit out here and enjoy. The topography, I think, just offers a lot. You know, there's just different parts of the day that you want to be here because, you know, this overcast is really nice. This is going to roll and it's just going to give it a different look. And then when we have the sun going, you just see shadows casted and stuff. So, and then we can't forget the snow.
The main differences we're going to see between the road on the south side, the paved highway, and the dirt road on the other side is going to be geological. We're going to pick up many different kinds of rocks, including limestone, which is totally absent from the south side of the mountain. It's on the north side of the mountain. And also the road doesn't descend to the same elevations as it does here. Here the road goes down to below 3,000 feet. On the north side, we get no lower than 4,500 feet. So it never gets warm enough for the saguaros and the palo verdes. On the north side of the mountain, we can find lots of mountain mahogany in the areas with limestone. They're notable for their clever little seeds that look like little tornadoes. Mountain mahogany isn't the only plant that has an affinity for limestone. As you can see in the hill behind me here, there's also a lot of agaves and a lot of this. And this is sotol, also known as desert spoon. It's a fine plant for making walking sticks. This is Pepper Sauce Canyon. It's home to Pepper Sauce Campground. It's best known for its large sycamores, I think. And in addition, there's walnut trees and hackberry trees. And the walnuts are nogales, and they provide plenty of food for coatimundis sometimes a year. And you can see whole troops of coatis underneath the nogales and collecting all the nuts. The sycamore trees often have large hollows, and they are home to spotted owls, which was a surprise that was discovered in the 1990s. We thought spotted owls lived only high up in the mountain.
It's tranquilo here.
It's super chill.
We're nursing students at the University of Arizona working on our masters. As you can kind of see, we were caving. We came out here today to explore Pepper Sauce Cave, and it's about 2 hours of playing basically down in a cave and getting muddy. Just team building. I really wanted to get all of us students together, so I knew this was an opportunity.
We got in there, got super muddy, got down low, and it was super easy to do, and I loved it. There's a huge lake at the bottom that you can dive into if you want. We were not brave enough to do that. I'm not that brave, but it's beautiful. The water's super clear. You can see all the way to the bottom. I am from Long Island, New York, so going from there and never being on the West Coast before to coming to here, complete shell shock, and I love it.
What do you think about having this right here in your own backyard, this road that takes you all the way to Mount Lemon?
I think it's fantastic. I wouldn't go any other way, personally, if I had the right vehicle. You can't be timid, and you can't be in a hurry.
It's a beautiful hidden gem, this road, especially if you're a photographer or you're a bird watcher, because there's a lot of birds in Mount Lemon that you don't find on the East Coast. You will love coming out here.
Arizona is home to many interesting people, places, and events that make our part of the world so special. This week on Arizona Profiles, we visit with a Tucson man who works outside with his hands and wouldn't have it any other way.
It's nice to sweat a little bit. I've never actually punched a clock in my life. I've never had to go into an office building to go to work, and I feel very fortunate to do that. And as cliche as it may sound, I am not working when I'm working. My name is Tyson Clark, and I'm a farrier. A farrier is a blacksmith that works on horses' feet. I'm a third-generation farrier. I was 12 when I started working on horses. I've driven teams of horses. I've started horses as babies on up to ride. But I've always been around the farrier industry because of my dad. When I was about 24, something clicked. The foot just seemed different to me. The whole lower limb of the horse seemed different to me, and I wanted to be more accountable for the things I was doing to their feet. And I just didn't want to be an average horseshoer. You've got 3 different personalities to start with. You have my personality, the horse's personality, and the owner of the horse's personality to deal with, and that can be a challenge. This is one of those jobs that in a split second, you could be done. Something could happen and you could never do it again, so we always have to think about our safety. It's great when I happen to make it to the horse shows and you have a client that has a problem horse who might have some problem feet on their horse, and you've done all you can to help them get to the horse show, and you see that smile on their face when they leave the ring. That's pretty special. All these horses have personalities. Every horse I work on has their own personality, and I'm fortunate enough to get to have a pretty loyal clientele, so a lot of horses, I've been shoeing them since they were young. I put the first shoes they've ever worn on them, and they're 10 years old now, and they've never seen anybody else but me. It's pretty neat to be able to just be kind of part of their lives. There's times where I'm gone just traveling, trying to get better, and seeing how other people shoe horses, how other people shoe dressage horses or jumping horses or Western horses, and I'm just trying to fix my flaws. In the last year, I've won about 10 buckles. You know, I've won 10 different competitions. I've won best shod foot at the competitions are what you want to win. You know, if you can win the best shod foot, then that's why we're there. Every time I pick up a horse's foot, I learn something. It's pretty much learning what I need to do better. I don't know if there is anything I'd rather be doing. I mean, there's certain things I'd rather be doing for a couple hours. You know, I'm a big hunter because I like the outdoors. I'm a big outdoorsman. And there you have it. I'm real fortunate that I do get to wake up every day and it isn't going to work. It's not going to work. I can't think of anything else I would be doing.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Next week, we showcase our Arizona Illustrated Emmy nominees and winners from the 2017 Rocky Mountain Emmy Awards held this week in Phoenix. Good luck to all the nominees. I'm Tom McNamara. See you then.